We are here today outside the office of the local Member of Parliament, Mark Dreyfus. Mark Dreyfus is the Attorney General of Australia. He is the highest legal officer in the country. As the highest legal officer in Australia, he knows full well that the imprisonment of Julian Assange in Belmarsh prison is illegal. Julian Assange has committed no crime. The only crime he has committed is through his WikiLeaks news service, telling the world the facts about American crimes, American war crimes in countries that they have illegally invaded. Those countries include Iraq, Syria, Libya, Afghanistan and others. He also has reported on corruption in the American political system and corruption in the Australian political system. Through Julian Assange, citizens of the world know a whole lot more that the US and the Australian governments would prefer them not to know. That is why, since 2012, he has been effectively locked up, first of all in the Ecuadorian embassy, where he had to flee to avoid being extradited to America. 4 years ago, in April 2019, he was illegally taken from the Ecuadorian embassy and locked away in Belmarsh prison. For most of that time, he has been locked away in solitary confinement. Julian Assange is guilty of no crime. One crooked judge found Julian Assange guilty of the misdemeanour of skipping bail. Julian Assange skipped bail in 2012 so that he could not be kidnapped and sent over to the United States, where they had plans to lock him away in solitary confinement for the rest of his life. His trial since April 2019 was thoroughly crooked. No jury, no judge with any decency would have sentenced Julian Assange, who has committed no crime, to be locked away further in solitary confinement. No decent judge, no decent jury would have ordered that Julian Assange be extradited to the United States. Yet that is exactly what happened. The only way this could have happened was if the trial was overseen by a crooked judge under the orders of the British government and the United States. Why won't the Australian government say anything about it? It's astonishing how very little has been said by the Australian Parliament about Julian Assange. The Australian government knows full well that his imprisonment is illegal, has chosen to do nothing about it. Albanese, contrary to what he told Monique Ryan, the independent MP, in November last year, has done nothing about Julian Assange. He has not spoken to President Biden about Julian Assange. We know this through freedom of information. And why has Albanese and the government done nothing about Julian Assange? We need this to be discussed in Parliament. When Monique Ryan found out that, contrary to what he told her in November, that Albanese had done nothing for Julian Assange, she was furious. She said that she would raise this in the next sitting of Parliament and get an explanation from Albanese as to why he has done nothing for Julian Assange. Parliament next sits on the 6th of March, Monday the 6th of March. We have to make sure that when Parliament sits on the 6th of March, that everything about Julian Assange is discussed. We have to have full answers from Prime Minister Athony Albanese. We have to have full answers from the Attorney General Mark Dreyfus as to why they have done nothing to end Julian Assange's illegal imprisonment. We must also have Parliament properly debate the whole issue of Julian Assange. Back in December 2021, independent MP Andrew Wilkie from Tasmania tried to put a motion to Parliament which called on the Australian government to contact President Biden and contact the British government in order to secure Julian Assange's release. Parliamentary procedure, which is controlled by the major parties, did not even allow Andrew Wilkie to put his motion to Parliament. Now why, if the Australian government knows that it has done everything that it can do and should have done for Julian Assange, Why would they not want to use a debate in Parliament to explain that to the Australian people? Why would they choose to not allow those who think the government should do more for Julian Assange? Why wouldn't the government allow those people to put their cases to the Parliament? Surely, if the government is right, surely if the government knows that they are wrong, they can say so on the floor of Parliament. The fact that they have prevented debate in Parliament reveals to me that they know full well that that what they have done, they have failed, they have betrayed Julian Assange. They have not used their vested power as the Australian government to tell the British government to release Julian Assange, and they don't want this to be discussed on the floor of Parliament. We must, as citizens of Australia, tell our members of Parliament that next time Parliament sits, starting Monday the 6th of February, that we expect members of Parliament to put to Parliament a motion calling for Julian Assange to be released. We expect of our Parliament to debate it. We expect of the Prime Minister and we expect of his government to explain to us why they believe they should not act to free Julian Assange. And we must allow those who think the government should act to free Julian Assange to put their case. Yeah. To not have this debated in Parliament as people around the world are crying out for Julian Assange is a disgrace. It's like an elephant in the room. As the whole world is crying out for Julian Assange's freedom, as the President of Mexico has called on America to release Julian Assange, as political leaders all over Europe are calling for Julian Assange's freedom, Australian Parliament says nothing. How is that good enough? We have to tell our members of Parliament, either you allow Julian Assange to be debated in Parliament, or you are not fit to be our representative. We must do all we can. Obviously, little is happening inside Parliament at the moment. Hopefully that can change. But until that changes, it's necessary for us out here who support freedom, who support democracy, who support freedom of speech, and who are against torture, must go on campaigning for Julian Assange. We had to attend protests. We had to attend protests such as the weekly Friday evening vigil outside Flinders Street Station and other protests to tell people, to tell our government to act, that Julian Assange should be free and that our government can act to free Julian Assange. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, James.